But just know that God's love is bigger than that. It can pierce right through that and pull you right out, because I'm a living testimony of that. What's up? My name is Christian. Welcome back to my channel, where I make content about mental health and social issues, all from a biblical perspective to help you heal, grow, and make an impact on your community and the world as Christ intended. I want this video to be a little bit more of a heart-to-heart. As a teenager, I've had my fair share of mental health challenges, to the point of, of suicidal ideation and wanting to attempt myself. And by the grace of God, I did survive that. And I know that right now there are a lot of teenagers who are currently struggling with their mental health and don't really know what to do with it outside of just feeling trapped. And now, with me being 24 and a lot further from my teen years than I used to be, I feel like now is a point where I can give some practical advice and insight now from a different perspective. And this is not just for if you're a teenager, but if you happen to know someone or connected to someone who is a teenager and they are currently struggling. And I just want to say as a disclaimer that in this video is in no way a substitute to therapy or counseling or anything like that. This is just me as someone who has struggled as a teenager, wanting to give my 2 cents, some advice and some tips to anyone who's struggling. I'm basically making a video that I would have really appreciated or needed when I was a teenager. Please be sure to talk to your parents if you're a teenager, about these kind of things. And I'm going to dive into that a little bit into the rest of the video, but just want to throw that out there. I hope and pray that this video will be a blessing. Let's get into it. So the first piece of advice I would give to any teenager who's struggling, first thing I would say to any teenager who's struggling, is to remember that your feelings are valid. The thing is about depression is that it doesn't discriminate. No matter how old you are, no matter how much success you have, how much money you have, what's going on in your life, depression doesn't discriminate. It can fall upon anyone. And a lot of teenagers are unfortunately led into the idea, whether by peers or by family or whoever it is, by society, that they shouldn't be depressed, that they have nothing to be depressed about because they're young, or because they have food on the table, or because they have a roof over their head. There are plenty of people who are millionaires who face depression, who have suicidal thoughts. So we can't look at those things to really tell us whether or not we can be depressed. Just because you are young doesn't mean you don't have the ability or the right to not feel good. And honestly, that is a lie that a lot of people carry with themselves from childhood, to their teenage years into adulthood, which is why so many adults currently don't know how to express how they feel, and they're struggling because they never addressed things and wounds that they had when they were a teenager themselves. And honestly, looking back, something I really wish I would have avoided when I was a teenager is letting other people tell me how I felt, or letting other people try to tell me what I could or couldn't feel because I was a teenager, or what was really going on in my mind. Because honestly, the only one who knows what's truly going on in your mind is you and God. No one else can really have the perspective that you have. No other human can really have the perspective that you have. Do not be afraid to speak up, especially when people are trying to tell you what's going on in your mind or what's not going on in your mind. Just because you are young doesn't mean you don't have a right to speak up about your own well-being and your own mental health. Which actually is part of my next point. It is to just in general to speak up for yourself, to advocate for yourself, to talk to someone. And I know from firsthand experience that when you feel like you are drowning in depression, it can be very difficult to talk about your struggles. Even with people that you want to talk about it to, it can be very difficult. And I feel like it's important to acknowledge that difficulty and acknowledge that struggle, because when you do, instead of just ignoring it, you allow yourself to take steps forward. And honestly, the stigma itself that comes along with being mental health or mental illness, or struggling with your mental health at all, because for me, my personal example, I was someone who was an A+ student, who was a well-rounded student, that teachers talked well about, and it was a struggle to be able to express any sort of thing that I saw or interpreted to be weakness. And then add me being a man on top of it, or it was difficult because I'm like, okay, no, I'm supposed to be strong. I'm not supposed to cry. I'm not supposed to do these kind of things. All of which are lies. And as I said before, depression and struggling with things like this, it doesn't discriminate no matter how successful you are or how much you know or anything like that. And with that, please know that no matter how much it feels like no one's there, or how much you feel like you're alone, there's always at least one person who would love to hear your story, who would love to help you and cares about you. One of the dangers of depression is that it clouds us from us really seeing how many people around us really do care. It clouds us from us seeing, that there, even if there are people who are the people that we want to be there aren't there for us, or people that we think should be there aren't there for us, that there is someone, whether it be a coach, a pastor, a youth group leader, with your friend, someone on your team, whoever it is, there's someone who cares for you and someone who wants to help you. And of course, the person who will always be there for you and who's always listening is Jesus. I just want to read through Psalms 34, verses 4 through 5. And it says, I sought the Lord, and he answered me and delivered me from all my fears. Those who look to him are radiant, and their faces shall never be ashamed. And these are verses I still hold on to closely to this day, where anytime I'm struggling mentally, or anytime I feel like everything's just too much, or I'm overwhelmed in general, I hold on to these verses knowing that I can look for God. I can seek God's face, and he's faithful to respond back, and he's faithful to deliver me out of whatever is happening. Jesus is the best person that you can talk to about these kinds of things. I've learned that, I've learned that firsthand, where I felt like there's no one I could really talk to, or there's things I didn't feel comfortable talking to other people about, that Jesus was always there. Jesus was always listening and prompted me to speak to him. He wanted to hear from me. And whether you've heard it here or you haven't heard it at all before, Jesus loves you and he cares for you. And I know it is difficult. I know I've been there. It is difficult to believe that. It's difficult to hold on to that when you feel like you're struggling. It feels like your entire world is just in darkness. And it feels like there's this cloud over you that you just can't escape, that you don't want to be there, but it feels like it's just your new reality. But just know that God's love is bigger than that. It can pierce right through that and pull you right out, because I'm a living testimony of that. And I know when you're a teenager or when you're young, it's difficult, or honestly, really at any age, it doesn't end. It could be like, okay, how does God really understand? It's like, he doesn't understand how it feels to be me. He doesn't understand how it feels to be in this situation right now. Like, he's somewhere up there, he's in the clouds, he doesn't get it, right? But the thing is that we need to remember that Jesus walked the earth just like you and I. Jesus was a baby, Jesus was a teenager, Jesus was a young man. Jesus did life. And Jesus suffered more than any other person while he was on this earth. And I really do encourage you, as some independent Bible study, to read through John 18 and 19 to really understand how Jesus not only suffered, but Jesus was betrayed. Jesus was left alone. But you can also see who Jesus leaned on in those moments when even his disciples weren't there for him. He went into prayer and he leaned on the Father. And something I just really wanted to interject between this point and the last point and the next one is that there is so much strength in speaking up. It is not weakness at all. Especially to the young men out there who believe who had this idea that it is girly, or it is not masculine to speak up about struggles you're having, whether it be depression or anxiety or whatever it is. I know that there's maybe whether it be people on your team, or whether it be certain friends you have who may laugh at the idea of guys crying, or guys being depressed, or guys being upset about certain things, saying that's for girls or whatever. Just know that there is a reason there's a lot of grown men, adults, who are walking around who don't know how to handle their emotions, who aren't healed, who are struggling a lot because they believe that lie from their childhood, they took it with them from their youth into their adulthood, and now they're having difficulties with managing life. And I don't say that to scare you, but I say that to open your eyes to a very real reality that is happening out there with a lot of adults, a lot of fully grown men. We can see from the strongest man there ever walked this earth, Jesus Christ, that there is no weakness in crying. There is no weakness in being upset or showing emotion. I actually created a whole hoodie and design based off of it, based off that whole idea. And with that last point in mind, I just want to let you know that there are resources available to you, even if you feel like there is no one around you that you can speak to, or you just don't want to talk about, what's going on in your mind, or, in cases like how I was, if you're suicidal and you're struggling with these things, there are resources available. One of the biggest of them is 988, which is a crisis hotline. You can contact them. They're confidential. You can call or text them, honestly, so you don't have to worry about, actually having to physically speak to someone over the phone. I've contacted them myself, and it really helped me a lot. And I'm going to leave more resources available. That's all free, of course, down below in the description. And of course, the biggest thing that I can say regarding struggling with depression as a teenager, with how much it sucks, is that there is so much hope in the name of Jesus. And it's funny, as someone who grew up in the church, I believed in Jesus, I had faith in Jesus. I was born again, but it came a point where I'm just like, where is he? You know, if Jesus is this great person who everyone tells me he is, why am I struggling so much? Where is he right now? And something I really wish I would have done or sooner is really looked into the scriptures and, just turned my face towards Jesus, because he was right there the entire time, and by the grace of God, I'm still here right now. Because one of the greatest things is that when we become children of God, our hope is not just eternal. Of course, that's the main thing, right? We have our eternal salvation. We can live with Christ for all of eternity if we confess with our mouth and believe in our hearts that Jesus Christ died on the cross for us and that he resurrected on the third day, taking the punishment that we deserve, right? There's eternal hope for that, but there's something today that we can receive. There's hope and joy and peace that God died for us to have for today. And for the next point, I just want to read to you Psalm 34:17-18, where it says, "When the righteous cry for help, the Lord hears and delivers them out of all their troubles. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit." So understand that even though whatever you're going through is difficult, whatever you're going through is hard and it's troubling, that not only will God lead you through it, right? God will deliver you out of it. When you call for him, right? When you call his name, he will save you. He will deliver you. He will lead you out. He will use that for good. And I'm a living testimony of it, because honestly, I wouldn't be able to help people. I've helped so many people at this point. And it's crazy to think about, because I suffered a lot with my mental health. But God, he took that and used it for his glory and used it for my good as well. So that now I can help people who are in positions that I was in. And to connect to that point, we're going to head to the famous Romans 8:28, where it reads, "And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose." Take heart and know that whatever suffering you're going through, whatever hardship you're going through, or a trauma that you're trying to work through or trying to deal with or struggling to speak up about, God will use that for his glory and for your good as well. And of course, talk to your guardian, talk to your parents. This is no way a substitution to therapy or anything like that. That's all I got for y'all today. And honestly, if you want me to make more content like this, more videos talking like this, I plan on making more videos like this, talking about anxiety, things like that too, specifically for teenagers in the future. But, just let me know down below in the comments. And I really do. Then also let me know down below in the comments if this was helpful to you, or you think this is helpful to someone that you may know. And if it was helpful to you, be sure to give it a like, and of course subscribe for more content like this. And for your currently struggling with certain things like, trauma and how that relates to the Bible and how that relates to God or walking as a Christian, I actually made a video on that. You can find it right here. Or if you're, one of the things that I personally struggle with has been anxiety, and I actually made a video on that as well. And you can find it right here. And above all that, remember, you got this because God's got you. Peace out.